The other thing with respect to public comment is we typically will put a limit on the amount of time that people have to speak. That's purely so that we can address everything that we might need to address in any given meeting. We had a meeting recently where we did not put any limits on what people had to say. That was because, frankly, I felt it was very important to hear what everybody who came up that night had to say. And so there were no time limits imposed. We let anyone who wanted to speak that night speak for as long as they felt they needed to or wanted to express their opinions and concerns, which is something that we consistently do. The only time that we've really imposed a rather strict time limit on it was, some of you may remember, years ago there was talk about moving to high school. And we consistently had in our meetings anywhere from 15 to 20 people that wanted to come up and address the board. At that point in time, I think we tried to limit it to like 3 minutes a person just because of the volume of people. But in our meeting back in June, we had no such intent. I certainly didn't. I wanted to hear what everybody had to say. The other thing is, there may be a misconception as to what the role of a board is and what the board does or does not do. As a general rule, the function of a board of ed and function of any board is essentially policy and oversight. The board is not involved in the day-to-day running of the school, nor should it be, nor should its individual members attempt to take that on. We have had circumstances, not with this board at all, in the past where we have had one or two members who thought it was their responsibility to basically try to run the school, and they more interfered than anything else. What the board does is the board selects a superintendent, much the same way that in Mansfield there's a town council. The Mansfield Town Council selects a town manager. It becomes the town manager's job to run the town with oversight from the town council. The town council certainly can interject opinions, can certainly interject policies, can certainly impose requirements and responsibilities that it feels are necessary or important. But as a general rule, it's the town manager that runs the town. And it's the same thing in the school district. It's the superintendent that on a day-to-day basis is going to run the town. Run the school, not the town. She's going to run the school. And she will be responsible basically for hiring the people that work under her. And the administrators will work under her and with her for the purpose of running the school. The teachers have a significantly important role because they have to carry out what the administration would like to see happen. So it's that type of a process, but there have been misconceptions in the past that people think that the board is intimately involved in the day-to-day functions of the school. It's not. And I would rather that going forward, people are aware of misconceptions about any of what I spoke about tonight, only because it makes discourse easier in the future. It clears up misconceptions. And most importantly, people who feel they haven't been heard hopefully will understand that they have been heard. It's just that we don't get into a two-way when people come up to address the board. Having said that, if there is anybody in the public that would now like to address the board, you would be very welcome to come up and have anything you might want to say. We will listen. No one comes up after all that.
I just want to make sure I was
come up.
stepping in front of anyone. Hello again.
Again.
My name, for those of you who don't remember, I spoke a couple of months ago. My name is Elena Gary. I'm a parent of two current students of color at U.S. Smith and two upcoming, hopefully in the next few years, students. There's two things I would like to say to this group tonight. The first is thank you for doing the right thing for kids, in particular regarding the grading policy and the grading equity policy. And I think it's a step in the right direction, not only for kids of color, but also special education students, and any student whose parent is not well connected at USC. I think it was a step in the right direction. I feel like I'm always showing up late to these things, and I want to say that that is no accident. I think U.S. Smith has very few teachers of color, very few parents of students of color in any sorts of positions of leadership in town government or on the Board of Ed. And that is, how our society is set up. And it's no accident that we don't find out, we as a group of parents don't find out about things until it's really too late for us to do anything about it. So, I spoke at the last meeting because we didn't know about the June meeting until the day of, and we were only able to get 2 of our members to come and speak. And they couldn't speak because they did not feel safe speaking in that meeting. We as a group also only found out about Mansfield Democrats having their vote over the summer the day of, and we were not part of any of those discussions leading up to what transpired that day. And I think that was pretty intentional, and we didn't find out until the day of, and by the time we found out, we were not able to mobilize or get any other sort of narrative out there other than the predominant narrative that had already been widely discussed and distributed without our participation. And I think that that's interesting that, you know, people are talking about equity grading policy and are not including parents of students of color in that conversation. And then, you know, we show up too late and we weren't able to mobilize in the way that we would have liked to for that need. We have, however, and myself personally, have felt involved. I think part of the narrative that went around that meeting was that, you know, parents aren't involved, or this was, you know, this policy went through and no one talked to the parents. And actually, I think many of the parents of students of color felt like we were really involved, and we were really grateful that we were finally heard that equity was a problem at EO Smith. And we were glad to be part of the conversation of trying to, again, take a step in the right direction. I don't think this grading policy fixes all that's wrong at EO, but it felt like a step in the right direction, and we felt like part of that. And so I think that's part of why the narrative that, you know, parents weren't involved is so hurtful, because actually we're involved and we did feel listened to and supported. That's the first thing. The second thing I'd like to say is please keep fighting for our kids. I think you did the right thing. I think a lot of you paid, you know, a hefty price for that, and we appreciate that and hope that as a group you guys keep fighting. Many of us feel very betrayed by teachers, the teachers union, people in the town of Mansfield, Board of Ed, friends of ours that, you know, we were kind of blindsided by their reaction, and we didn't have time to talk to them. All of a sudden, they're doing things, and we're really surprised by a lot of that, and really hurt. And as a reaction, I think a lot of us have kind of withdrawn on ourselves and are not looking to put ourselves out there. So you might see a little bit less of us, because I think a lot of us are trying to regroup and figure out what's going on and don't feel comfortable or safe engaging in the process in the way that we used to. So please keep doing the right thing for our kids. Sorry, I have a crier, I can't control it. The last thing I want to say is a word of encouragement. My second child just started at US Smith a couple days ago. And she's a great student. She's really even keeled. She doesn't get super emotional about things. And so she came home for the first day of school, and I said, "Hey, how was school?" And she's like, "It was all right." You know, like that's her typical response. And then later she came up to me, and she doesn't know a lot of this stuff that's been going on. So this was a legitimate response from her. She wasn't aware of a lot of the stuff that's been going on. She came up to me, she said, "You know, there's one teacher that I really like. And it's a brand new teacher to EO Smith. I don't know, you know, if he's been teaching elsewhere, but a brand new teacher to EO Smith. And I guess on the first day, he was talking to the kids and saying something along the lines, I'm probably going to butcher it, but something along the lines of, you know, I'm here, I'm a teacher, I'm here to teach you this subject, but I'm also just here to teach you about the process of learning and about being a lifelong learner and how you engage in that process. An important part of that is being able to fix your mistakes and to keep learning and not to give up and to keep trying. And to that end, you know, if you struggle on an assessment or any sort of assignment, we can work together and you can try again. You can keep learning, and that's part of the process, and that's a really important part of being a student." And she felt so excited. She'd never heard a teacher talk like that. And so she came home and made a point of telling me that, and I thought that was really encouraging, because that's what I hope that we're here for, is helping students be excited about learning and feel like any student, regardless if you're buddies with the teacher, or your parents are buddies with the teacher, or you know how to work the system or not, but that any student can engage in that process and continue to be a learner and to feel comfortable and safe working through things with teachers. So I'm encouraged, and I'm grateful for that teacher, and I hope that he stays
Thank you.
Yes. First, thank you, and I really don't want to step on that, but that was very well stated. Anthony Thompson is also part of PRJ, and there was a resident of Mansfield, and I just want to speak very quickly about the betrayal of a group of people determining for a town, for a community who represents their interests of their schools. And that's what we saw at the Democratic meeting there back in May. That it has denied the community the right to speak on who they think are best equipped to attack the urgent issues that are facing our school. Okay, so I just want to say that it was very eloquently said about what the role of the board is, but it's also about the representation of the board and who each of you are there to represent your communities, and that a select community omitted the role of the community in that selection process, and it wasn't overlooked. And just wanted to make just a reminder to the board about the urgency of representing the entire community and not a select interest or not a few folks who feel, personally affronted or whatever, right? That there's a community at stake here, and that the urgency is critical. It's critical. So just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you both.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
You're behind the column.
Mo Cottonelli,
Yep.
resident. I have a first year student now at UConn and a freshman year, and I just want to say a couple of things. One, I want to echo the sentiments about continuing to fight the good fight and to really have students' interests at heart. And thank you for restating the purpose of a board. I'm also a member of a board, an international board too, and we don't get into the day-to-day affairs and we don't get into personality conflicts at the organization that I represent. What you do represent, though, are the interests of students. And so we probably will be taking a step back because we do feel like it's traumatizing to continue to feel invisible in work that is really important for students. Black and brown students, LGBTQ, you take any marginalized group and insert there. That's what happened over the summer. So I'm just saying to all of you, I'm still a supporter. I still will be here to speak on behalf and advocate for them. But I'm just challenging you all to keep with your correct narrative of the role of the board, what Sharon's role is, what Lou's role is, and how we can bring that together to work toward advocating for all students. And I want to make sure that others don't feel like we feel. And so if there's work that we can do internally for us or any other group, happy to do that. But you're not going to see this woman up here marching a flag because lines were drawn at that meeting, and the lines were drawn against students. And so I just continue to hope that you will take that part of your role seriously and to heart, and just don't take your foot off the gas, because this is good work that needs to happen here. And so I just want to thank all of you for your work and your role. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we can move on to our committee reports. Personnel.
I think the full board met because you had the custodial agreement to approve, so that was done. I wasn't at the meeting, but I think there was a group of people who were at that meeting who voted for that, right? Okay,
Yes.
So
That's it.
that's it.
Okay, policy.
We met. I usually just go over it briefly, but I'm gonna read our minutes today because I think that it's important to say what happened at the policy meeting. Everyone from policy committee was there. Community members that were in attendance were Amy Nocton, Susan Delarge, Lisa Reese, Dan Uriano, and Michelle Tang. The policy committee invited the community members present to join at the table for interactive discussion regarding the update on the grading and reporting policy. The group discussed the recent Democratic caucus and outcomes. Information was shared regarding the actions preceding the meeting, and the committee members shared their opinions and ideas regarding next steps. Concerns discussed were false information shared, and ways to present accurate information about the 2+ year policy development process and staff involvement, accurate information about staffs leaving the district, the time study conducted to analyze time available for teachers' individual responsibilities, collaboration time with colleagues, and communication, collaboration, and clarity time with administration. The policy committee was grateful to the teachers and staff who attended and shared their perspectives. The committee discussed revisiting student activity fund policy, and we also provided a marked up version of Shipman and Goodman's policy. It was the discipline policy. Also discussed that any cell phone updates that'll come up will be discussed. We're meeting September 17th. The other thing we did at policy was we all saw and shared the email that was sent out by Amy Nocton and Joe Goldman.
Any questions on that? Okay, we can go on to finance.
Finance met prior to this meeting, so on the agenda tonight, the consent agenda, there are three motions, one being the quarterly financial statements that are being received. The second would be the fiscal year 25 year-end transfers, and then the third is capital budgets projects adjustment. You all received the preliminary financial statement for the period ending June 30th, 2025 in your board packets. Some of the things, I guess, we basically ended the year on a very good note with some of those adjustments to cover some other areas. The balance left for this year is $73. Amanda does a fantastic job of working with the superintendent in order to try to stay on target with the costs. There are a number of things put into place to help make that happen. Just worth noting, the VOAG grant for this year was actually, we received less, but the state did compensate us and gave us the money to bring us up to par. So we do have a slight balance there that'll be used by VOAG for during this year. I think that was $150,000. Yeah. I don't know if we want to go into all the detail.
Yeah, it was what we've talked about it a few times as far as the change in the structure for ag funding, and so they reduced the amount of tuition that we can collect from towns to 58%, and they had said that they were going to make it whole, the tuition money whole. They did, but they didn't do it to the tuition line. They did it to the grant line. So the grant seemed like and there was surplus to the grant line above and beyond that amount. So we were able to make ourselves whole on the tuition side, and it did leave a surplus. It's always hit or miss depending on the year of what the state allocates for that grant. So it looks like next year we won't have a surplus. So the money that they have, the $150,000 of surplus for this year, goes into a capital account, and they are preparing a 5-year long range plan to prepare for what are our immediate priority needs for large line items, and making sure that there is money available for those priorities in years where we don't have surplus to go in and feed that capital account.
Page 5 and 6 of the budget or the special ed funds are tuition and amount spent, and so as of year end, we actually had 12 to 15 more students, even though our tuition dollars were up somewhat. 230,000 we had an increase in the revenues, but we had 12 to 15 more students over the course of the year who entered the district, and so that actually having that surplus helps over the revenues, helps balance that off. Debt service fund is still healthy. That's on page 10. We talked with the capital projects. We have a motion to move some dollars around because we did receive the $8,000 grant that Amanda was able to then utilize some of the dollars that were used for some of the capital projects in other areas. And I want to say, I guess that's basically, the cafeteria fund, we were actually running in the red on that. So there have been adjustments made for 2026 in terms of increasing the cost of the meals to students, and then there was a decreasing in staffing based on one retirement, and then to do some other adjustments. And I guess they're taking the manager's position and managing that differently in terms of where they'll find the funds for that. So, and our fund balance for the health insurance fund on page 16 is good. Claim through workers' compensation was in good stead. And you talked about the balance, so I think that's good. Yeah.
Building, yeah.
Yeah, building met, just before this meeting, topics, ongoing topics, indoor air quality assessment, which is expanded to really be more of a broad HVAC bit of assessment, going back and we've shared that before. We got a very comprehensive report from an engineering firm, and so we're really going through that, and we teed up a special meeting later this month to dig into it and start to assign some priorities, develop some questions to go back to the firm that they're reporting to us, and then sort of see what our next steps are with that. So it's, again, trying to get started in that process. Other significant topic was continuing to work towards finding a home for the STAR program. I think everyone's aware we have a month-to-month, year-to-year lease at the former Vinton School. The length that we can sort of maintain that is somewhat unknown based on the condition of the school. So I've been working on that. I've mentioned that before. So we've navigated some meetings with Department of Administrative Services as well as the lawyers to put together some options for the strategy, purchase versus lease with respect to reimbursement from the state. Important for us to have that. So understanding what our best paths are for that. So we're assessing those paths. We authorized some operating funds for some initial architectural and engineering evaluations of a particular property or candidate property that we have. So that's hopefully we'll get some motion there to develop more of a budget. You can kind of see what the next steps are with respect to that. So that's our main subjects at this point.
Thank you, Tim. Curriculum?
Curriculum didn't meet.
How about EDJ?
Equity, diversity, and justice did not meet. We will be meeting to plan this current school year's actions. I will say that every year we review the board's guiding principles regarding equity, diversity, and justice, partly to refresh ourselves of what the commitments we've made to the entire community, and also to determine whether there are areas that we haven't addressed that need to be addressed. And we do remain committed to the work to realize equity of access and opportunity for all students, and to make this an inclusive and safe community for everyone who's part of the community: students, administration, families. We are committed and dedicated to continue that work. It doesn't end.
It doesn't end, right? Zoom reports. Isa and Fabio, who's going first? Oh, and by the way, Fabio, we really were waiting for you. It had nothing to do with it.
No, only due to the school. So right now, I think we're all just kind of getting adjusted to being back in school. We kind of not necessarily getting adjusted to the rules, because I don't really think we have new rules. I think that the rules are in place, have always been there, but right now we're getting used to new enforcement. I think so just adjusting to that. It is different, but I know students are still adjusting to it. I know we have to do new study hall rules and or newly enforced study hall rules, and the new obviously the delay of the building, the construction, is getting adjusted to the building. And I think that we're still in that adjustment period.
Yeah, likewise what she said, we're just getting adjusted to new things. I think that the new implication of we're using silverware now for elections. I think that's I haven't heard much about it. I think people are still getting their opinions on it, but I think that overall right now it seems as a positive, but as well this is just the first few days of school, so there's not a lot to update on. And sorry for being
Thank you both. We can move to our superintendent's report.
Okay, so, you know, summer's one of these times when there's a lot of action going on, but, kind of hard to capture it. I'm just gonna pick up on a couple of things. First is what I was actually gonna ask Fabio and Aisa to chime in on, because there were meetings, with administration, Dennis, Lou, Mariah, regarding the fundraising process and grant process for that program, which is what Fabio is getting to. So there are some new procedures, I think, rather than rules. There's new procedures in place in the CAF in regards to, you know, metal trays. I know we were waiting on the cups to come in. I'm not sure if they've come in yet, but there's, you know, different containers, garbage containers for the different types of waste that we're producing. And so this is a really, it's a big endeavor. It's a really positive one. I think our students are probably way better at it than the adults are, because you're coming from schools where they were pretty much in place in some way, shape, or form. So we're excited about it, but I'm going to want to hear, and I wasn't putting anybody on the spot today because you've been 2 days in, and I really appreciate you being here tonight to represent, or 2 full days. Well, yeah, 2 full days in for our upperclassmen. So once we get kind of a handle on it, providing us feedback as to, from a student perspective, how's it going? What can we do to improve? What are some things that we can do to work together? But it was definitely a community effort through the town of Mansfield and through building administration, and Dennis, of course, who is, you know, on top of spending that grant money always, and making sure that we're being as environmentally responsible as we possibly can be in contributing here at EO. So that was that piece. I don't know if you guys want to add anything about that.
Yeah, no, I think it's good because it's like visible, so you can like see that there's like a change being made, and also like be a part of it, because like by being there, like, we're kind of forced to participate, and I think that like it's definitely it's for beneficial.
Yeah, and I see people I've seen people participating on that too, so I feel like it's, as far as the 2 days that I've been, I feel like it's been pretty successful. So
okay, great. So we'll be waiting for more feedback as we go along. I did meet with the new superintendent over at Mansfield, Candace, who, along with Amanda Backus, because usually these contracts are generated through Mansfield as a shared service, negotiating with John Hipsher from M&J Bus regarding the extension of our bus contract. And so we're not quite there yet, but the proposal and the proposal and the savings and the negotiations that happened are really very much in the best interest of our fiscal kind of environment here. So we were able to squeeze in some, you know, extra benefits, some bonuses for a reduction in what we owe based on, you know, paying up front versus, you know, paying monthly. So it really, for this year, puts us in a really great place. And then moving forward, the percentage increases I think that we've kind of been seeing over time won't necessarily pack the punch that I think we've felt over the past couple of years. So details on that to follow. We did meet, you and I both, with teachers and parents regarding what occurred in July regarding the grading and reporting policy, and received some great feedback. Any feedback that we get is great and helpful in making a path to move forward. So we appreciated that. We did participate in training for Connecticut paid family leave. That was myself and Amanda Banks, our HR specialist for this new initiative that takes place October 1. It's been extended to schools now. So basically our non-unionized personnel will begin paying into that program with the state starting in October. So training on what that means, and then messaging to folks that they know what to expect and providing support in that. We did meet with frontline engineers for the frontline engineer for clarity in implementing components of the custodial contract. So that was a big piece of our personnel work in being able to get useful reports out of the system. It is a challenge. Frontline is not easy, but we were able to learn some new processes that Amanda has taken and implemented right away, so that the record keeping that we have to do on our end to supplement the lack of reports available through Frontline are already being implemented, and we're working with the custodial union to make sure that the information that they need to, first of all, make sure that their numbers are right for vacation and sick time, but also to make sure that the new process of uploading quarterly instead of monthly is again uploading correctly, so that it's very transparent. One of my favorite days this summer, I gave a tour to alumni representatives who had called and asked, they have coffee across the street every Thursday and wanted to come in and see their old stomping grounds, and would we be interested in giving them a tour. So I got to spend about an hour and a half with 4 alumni between the years of 72 and 75, who I got all kinds of stories of the different nooks and crannies that exist and their experiences. And it was just, first of all, they were very grateful to have the doors open to them. I think I would just say we love Lou does it often. I was very grateful to get to participate in that. And the more that we can get folks coming in to see the building, to see, where it is now versus where it was then, and just to hear the reaction, they kept saying more people have to come in and take a look at what this facility is looking like now. And there were parts of the building that didn't exist when they were here. So it was just really a fun thing. I want to say that the counseling department, the administration, did a great job with the grade 9 summer webinars that they put forward to indoctrinate our incoming 9th graders into the school. Always a great way for them to start. And then the student orientation, the 9th grade orientation, really well done. Our PNH folks, amazing job. The vibe that they create here and the welcoming culture and climate that they bring students into is not lost on any of us. So to our folks who are on PNH, I know you're a person, you were a big part of that. So I don't know if you want to talk to that at all about what that experience was like.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun for us, for PNH too, just to get to meet just familiarize people, help people make new faces. We give tours, we do these group sessions, so we all go into group rooms, and we just it's 4 of us. There's other upperclassmen, and there's some upperclassmen, some sophomores. We just greet the freshmen to our school, and we explain if they have any questions they can ask. They just have a little one-on-one, get to know what it was about. And I really enjoyed that. And then we also get to show them how to do photo IDs. We take them to photo IDs, and then in the auditorium we get to meet Dr. DiLoretto, and they just get to we make sure that they mingle with other towns too. That's a very big emphasis for us, is to make sure that they leave with more friends than they came in with, and met new faces. So yeah, I think it's one of the best parts of the summer for me. Yeah, it's pretty fun.
It's great to see the students take the lead on that. So you guys all did a great job, along with the adult support. Shannon Cartier and Karen Zlatnik. I was going to call her completely different last name this time. Karen Zlatnik did an amazing job, and part of that amazing job is kind of the organization and coordination, but then allowing kids to lead, which is really lead our PNH kids to actually lead the charge, which sends a great message, I think, for our incoming leaders as they come into 9th grade. We had a welcome back. Our opening of school was on August 26th. I want to thank Deborah and Kimberly and Nick for joining us for that. And this is a little bit of, I think the way that I stated it in my opening remarks was this was the first year that I've ever really started a year with more uncertainty than excitement and hope because of some of the things that occurred over the summer. But what I can say is, in the time that we've been back, more teachers have reached out to come down and sit and have conversations about how to move forward with ideas and suggestions, and hopefully really honest talk. I know that I am about as transparent as I can possibly be, sometimes too much, but that welcoming teachers to come in and hopefully feel as if they have a voice to to express what they're thinking and feeling. We've tried to maintain that open door with the intent that that there's a positive plan moving forward to make sure that this type of a situation doesn't arise again. And then lastly, welcoming back our teachers meant welcoming our new teachers to the building. So you can see, the list of folks in our departments from building and grounds, security, and then all of our departments, some new staff, and then we were able to congratulate some of our former staff who are still current staff, but now in different roles. So Robin Cashmore is now a full-time advisor at Depot. Bill Green is our director of science. He went from a chemistry teacher and biology teacher to director of science. And Adam Milznicek was a math teacher and is now in our special ed department. So we're always really excited to see folks taking on that next challenge. So that's it.
Thank you. Any questions on the superintendent's report? Okay, we can go on to the consent agenda, but before we do, does anybody want to make any changes to the agenda, modifications, anything to be taken off? No? Then I would entertain a motion for approval. A motion. Thank you, Nick. Is there a second? Second by Sarah. Give it back there. Is there any discussion on this?
Jim, the only discussion would be that there really isn't discussion allowed in the consent agenda, is there? There is no discussion allowed in the consent agenda. They need to be taken off in order to be discussed, correct? Or is there, do I have a misunderstanding on that?
No, I just always give you the opportunity to voice your objections.
And then tell us we can't really discuss it if you decided to.
As I'm concerned, you can discuss it.
Okay, all right, just
If you have a concern. Is there, okay, hearing no other discussion other than Tim's, we can put that to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tim. Put that into the consent agenda. Whole business, we have something on for the tuition agreement amendment.
Yeah, that's me. I think Sharon, everybody got this, right? At our last meeting in July, I guess, I had raised a question about the first paragraph of the tuition student agreement. And I think I ended up getting it backwards. It refers in the tuition agreement, which is not the agreement that deals with staff members who have students coming into the school, but it cited that policy. So in fact, the wrong policy. We made a correction to properly refer to that policy, but then when I read it, I realized that made no sense at all. And that what we really needed to have in paragraph 1 is a reference to the correct policy, the non-tuition policy, which is the one pursuant to which this agreement is being entered. So I'm going to read what my proposal is that we replace the existing paragraph 1 that's highlighted in yellow on the first receipt with a new section 1, which would read as follows. Families who do not reside in Ashford, Mansfield, or Wilmington are eligible to enroll their children in E.O. Smith High School in accordance with the terms and conditions set forth in board policy non-resident tuition students, which is incorporated by reference herein. And I've given that to Jill. So, and so I think it just we had this referencing the wrong policy, and I think that just corrects it. So that's what I was looking for, kind of motion that we.
So you're making that motion?
I make the motion that we replace the existing provisions with one I just corrected.
Okay. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Deborah. And we'll be looking right at you and you respond. That was great. Is there any discussion on this?
A question.
Yes.
On the third page, the non-resident is highlighted in yellow. Is there anything changing about that?
Okay, so so this was in notes that Tony had sent me, and I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Tony, this was in, I highlighted it to remind me about what the suggestion was, and I believe it was, because we talk about the policy being non-resident positional staff. And in some sentences, we call them positional staff, and in some sentences, we call them,
Just
non-resident. And so I believe the proposal is to, just be consistent with how we're referring to staff, because the positional staff really is anyone who holds a position here, and they could be used interchangeably, but to be consistent with the terminology.
Yes, I didn't actually include that in the motion because I thought that was just a.
If you do, you reference it later on, the fourth pillar down, non-resident.
Yeah, so I mean, we can just streamline, you know, be clear on one or the other. I think we're more consistent with non-resident positional staff. So I think if we just replace non-resident staff and add in the extra language, we'll be good to go.
We need to add that.
Do you want me to add?
It's up to you if you consider that to be just
Friendly amendment.
It's substantive.
Would you make a friendly
I would accept that friendly amendment.
Yeah. Okay, so the friendly amendment is as Sharon has proposed?
Yep.
Thanks. Is there a second on that? Is this the person who seconded, Deborah? Are you okay with the,
Yes.
Sorry, yes.
I am.
right, so there is now an amendment to the motion. Is the motion as amended? I guess I want to say, is there, we can put it to a vote. Is there any other discussion on this? Okay, then we can put the motion as amended to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, fantastic.
I wanted to mention one other thing. No, this is another issue related to the tuition and payment. Sharon, when I communicated this to you, we talked about that issue of the positional student agreement, which has an MOU that the union would sign.
Yep.
And the question that you raised is whether it would make sense to have the actual parents of each student who is, in other words, have that
Sign the MOU.
or acknowledge it. And I don't know if that's something we need to bring to a vote or not. I think that was. So rather than just having it be an agreement between the union or the MOU, that every teacher whose a child is attending under the terms of that MOU would acknowledge those terms by just.
So I did take a little liberty with, because right now we have one person who's come forward to take advantage of that, and I did ask them to sign.
Yeah,
a similar.
I don't think that it requires a change. It was just that.
Yeah, it's I think for clarity's sake, and even just to come down, the MOU itself doesn't completely spell out exactly what the full tuition rate is, or what the tuition credit is, and what the bottom line number is that person is responsible for paying. So in the agreement, we did just add in a piece that stated, here's what the full tuition is, here's what this year's credit is, and this is what this year's tuition is, so that person can decide how they're going to make that payment.
I think the MOU was set up to be able to be adjusted every year for that number to change. We did that, it was really, we were approving the form.
Right. Yeah, right. And so so it's not, the MOU can and should be amended every year to kind of reflect
those numbers.
Yeah, the increases. But for the person who's actually wants to either have, payment come out of their check, or who's going to write a check, we just wanted to be really, really transparent about, this is what the full tuition amount is for this year, which varies every year, it changes from year to year. And then this is what, this year's, what the contribution is, or what the credit is from the board, and then what they're paying for this year. And so every year they're going to have to sign that agreement, that they know and understand what they're responsible.
Yeah, because I think the MOU just said that that number would be set, that would be adjusted every year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just for the sake of clarity, we would go with that.
Sharon, do we have a percentage somewhere in the MOU, like something 60%? Yeah, okay.
So we translated that into.
I thought we did. I just wanted to make sure it was something.
Yeah, and that was a a definite change. That was a board change with that document to not have it be a flat number, but to be a percentage of what that increase is.
Okay, new business, is there any new business to come before the board tonight? All right, we have a couple of discussion items, one of them is scheduled for the board retreat. Did you have a date in mind?
I do not. Usually we do a board retreat in December.
Right.
We thought about the potential of having one earlier than that, just to kind of catch up on, have some conversations kind of moving forward. There's some data.
Should probably still be in December.
Okay. So, yes. So usually it's the first or second week and the first or second Saturday in December. So we're looking at the 6th or the 13th.
I will not be available on the 6th. My son's getting married.
Oh, okay.
Priorities. Can you send out a priority?
Send out a survey? You got it?
Yeah.
Yeah, then we can bring it back next time. Yeah, awesome.
It's fine. It's fine. You're gonna get new members, not all made bigger numbers, maybe. Okay, anything else on the board retreat? No. Then, before we go into executive session, normally we have an opportunity to address the board, but when we come out of executive session, we'll probably just want to go home. So I think Arthur might have a statement that he wants to address the board. This is always the opportunity for anybody on the board to address the rest of the board.
If anybody wants to go before me, feel free. This might take a little bit, but
Sure.
go for it. All right, so before I begin, I don't think it needs to be said, but I say it anyways. I only speak for myself as a board member. I don't speak for anybody else on the board, and I certainly don't speak for the board as a whole. Again, doesn't need to be said, but I'm going to say it. Been a lot of talk lately about us, and more specifically about the new grading and reporting policy that's been implemented this school year. Many people are happy about the change, but some people, specifically teachers in the school, are not happy about it. The policy subcommittee was accused of not listening to those teachers and their concerns, and some said as much on our June 3rd Board of Education meeting. Members of this board advise that we need not to point fingers at anyone and we need to lower the temperature surrounding the situation. Let me ask everybody something. Where did that get us? Can I answer my own question? Because what got us was in a situation where we're losing 2 long-standing board members simply because they voted in favor of this policy. The thing is, I did listen to the teachers. I listened to them back when they started attending our meetings in late 2023. I listened to all the feedback we received from the surveys and the focus groups we do with them. And boy, did I listen on June 30th, when for 40 minutes, teachers came up and expressed their concerns and frustration with the new grading and reporting policy. In fact, I listened 3 times, once live, twice recorded. Spent 2 hours of my life listening to the concerns of these teachers, and in turn, I am now frustrated and concerned, and I am turning up the temperature and pointing fingers. The first teacher to speak was the vice president of the E.O. Smith Teachers Association, and he spoke mostly about the lack of time teachers have to complete things, something that's going to be a running theme here. His comments were relatively brief and mentioned nothing about problems with the policy itself, just the lack of teacher time. The next teacher was from the social studies department, and she noted that her concern was bigger than the policy, didn't give any specific issues to the policy itself. She mentioned that, quote, in order for students to thrive, teachers need to thrive. And in order for teachers to thrive, their lived experiences need to be a significant part of the discussion when it comes to planning and implementing of policies and initiatives. A very interesting point, and yet another running theme. Next was another social studies teacher, but I'll come back to him later. World language was after this, and that teacher was very concerned about reassessment. She felt that if students were given the opportunity to reassess an assignment, that they might, everybody sitting down, try to get a higher GPA. She then said something interesting. Quote, if you're telling me that we have to teach lockstep, and we pretty much do, the department head will tell you that the world language department, we are pretty much on the same page on any given day. But that does not mean the content is being delivered in the same way. So now I'm confused. Nothing in the policy is saying that any teacher needs to modify their style to be like any other teacher. Just that students should realistically expect to be educated on the same material between similar classes. If that's already being done in the world language department, I really fail to see the issue. Science came up to speak and admitted that the test score and the school rankings have gone down. This, to me, sounds like a perfect time to implement a policy like this, but okay. He notes that the policy seems to suggest that the solution for this is for the teachers to do more and not the students, which I could not disagree with more. He mentions how late and missing assignments are a problem, both of which are addressed in the new policy. Then came a few choice quotes that I think need to be addressed. Quote, if we work together to increase student learning and performance, think of how wonderful things could be again. It's almost like if the teachers continued to come to the policy meetings any time in the last school year and bothered to implement the policy in the pilot stage, we could have had great collaboration because we would have had real world data to make the comparison to. But no one did until the end, and they didn't bring any actual data. My favorite quote was this, quote, if what they were being asked to do is important, it would be self-evident. So by that logic, timely feedback, not important. A syllabus with clear academic expectations and grade composition, not important. Meaningful homework, not important. Clear communication between students and teachers, not important. It can't be important because it wasn't evident before, because it wasn't addressed until now. Finally, quote, what would happen if each department sat down at the beginning of the year or even at the end of this one and said, what are your needs? What are the problems you're seeing? You in the trenches, what are some solutions to those problems? I have a counter question to that. What would happen if you implemented the pilot of the policy and we asked you throughout the year, how's it going? What's good? What's bad? Wouldn't that have been very collaborative? We couldn't do that because no one came back with that information. An English teacher was last, and if I was confused before, it was about to go tenfold. Quote, I think the policy was based on really relevant and effective research. We have to look at the existing culture that sometimes doesn't hold students very accountable or to high standards, end quote. Not really sure what that means, but okay. She said she had students abusing the current late policy, which was 5 days after a unit ended for English. She had students turning in all of their work for a 2-month unit now. Question whether or not she actually read the policy, because that's something that's directly addressed in the bullet that says students are expected to adhere to timelines established by the teacher. She also had concerns about policy telling students to be concerned with their grade and not their learning, and went on to relay a story from her younger sister who was in an Ivy League university, where she said she learned more from a class she almost failed. I have another question here. Did her sister have a transcript that had C's and D's on it? Did she tell the university that my transcript was not the highest grades, but trust me, I learned a lot? Of course not. You don't get into an Ivy League university with poor grades. You get into them with good grades, and you get good grades by working hard. I'll address this here, but this is the line of thinking about this that really offends me. Why would we ever tell a student not to try for the highest grade possible? Most students who would want to try to get a high GPA would want to use it to go on to a better college and probably post-secondary education. It seems like these teachers are okay with telling these students that their high grade is good enough, and that bothers me. I never want a student to feel something they're doing is good enough, because there's always room for improvement, and that's something that this policy provides. As far as overarching themes of those speaking, teacher time was a big one. For that I say, you had an entire school year. We piloted this policy last school year, and it was a soft launch. You could have prepared for this all year, making adjustments, getting things ready for the full rollout, and 90% of your work could have been done by this time. So I have little sympathy for those who didn't follow the pilot. This is the same issue I had with teacher collaboration. Teachers did come to our meetings when we first started in 2023, and then stopped coming as the school year started in 2024. That was the most crucial time for us, because you would have had actual examples to give us and tell us where the policy needs improvement. Nobody showed up. We were then told on the June 4th policy meeting, that the teachers didn't come to the policy meetings because they weren't formally invited. What a horrible excuse. You need a formal invite to come to a public meeting, which is forming a policy that directly affects you, meetings which you spoke on in the past. No one thought to, ask Lou or Sharon or any of us? Really? The last theme of concern was reassessment, where according to one teacher, someone collapsed on the floor when hearing that students could reassess any assignment, which I found amazing because the prior policy was much more liberal on reassessment. With regard to time frame or number of reassessments, the only barrier being what kinds of assignments could be reassessed. The policy corrects that issue, makes reassessment something a student has to earn. There's a 5-step process before the reassessment can be taken, and it can only be taken once. I really fail to see how this is somehow worse or harder than the previous rule of reassess any time for as many times as you need. The new process gives a fair and equitable chance for all students to reassess it,
and it makes students earn the right to do so. What is interesting about all this listening I've been doing is the stuff that you don't hear. What I did hear a lot of was this was going to create more work for teachers and they don't have time for all of this. What I didn't hear from anyone was the negative effects this policy would have on students. Don't get me wrong, it was mentioned. But amazingly, there was no detail as to what that might be. There was plenty of detail about the teacher workload, but none on the negative effects of students, unless you count grabby teachers. I said I would go back to the social studies teacher because he said, quote, better alignment is one of the goals of the grading and reporting policy, which is fair to our students because it would ensure a more common study experience. But it might not ultimately be what's best for our students in terms of their education. This is when my ears perked up. I listened for the next sentence, expecting to hear details as to why this might not be what's best for students, but much to my chagrin, there was nothing. The next line was, what is best is a passionate and inspiring teacher in every classroom. How disappointing. And no other teacher provided any other details other than they might try to chase a higher grade. Heaven forbid. The same social studies teacher ended by saying, folks, this particular community has a proud tradition of civil discourse that leads to constructive change. That is what we need now between students, Board of Ed members, teachers, admin, and every stakeholder, end quote. And here's where I get angry. Let me ask you, where was the civil discourse at the Mansfield Democratic Caucus? Where was the civil discourse when teachers from this school were emailing people with the sole mission of removing our 2 board members simply because they supported this policy? Not by appropriate means, by the way. Not by holding a primary, which would give the town a chance to weigh in. No, they riled up enough people to bum rush the caucus and force the slate change there. This is a quote from the email. My friend and colleague, name redacted, has asked me to do what I can to have people join us tomorrow evening for a caucus to try to replace the current Mansfield Board of Ed reps, both of whom voted in favor of this new grading policy, with new individuals who are concerned about the impact the new policy will have on student learning and teacher workload. And again, we go to the negative impact on student learning. What is it? I have yet to hear any negative impact on student learning in any kind of detail besides the future attitudes of teachers. The worst part about all this was going to the policy meeting the day after this Board of Ed meeting and being told by the president of the E.O. Smith Teachers Association, oh, we don't have a problem with the policy. We have concerns about the implementation. But that wasn't on the live stream for everyone to hear, so no one knows about it until now. I could go on for an hour about this, but I won't. I just felt the people who might be watching this needed to know more than what they were led to believe by the teachers. To the students of EO, I say this. The policy was created for you. This gives you the tools, guidelines, and power to be the best student you can be. But remember, with great power comes great responsibility. To the parents of the EO students, rest assured this policy is implemented and was designed with your students in mind. It was designed to give every student a fair and equitable grade and to prepare them for their future, no matter what it might look like. And I'm going to branch off here and just mention to the parents of students of color, because you came here and you spoke, and you mentioned being afraid to speak. I don't want anybody to ever feel that way. And if you feel you need to get something out, obviously I'm a loudmouth. You can contact me. I have no problem speaking for you. To the people of Mansfield, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that a town which claims to have well-educated folks in it allowed less than 5% of your Democratic voters to determine who should sit in these 2 seats based on falsehoods, half-truths, and misinformation. And finally, to the teachers, especially to those who organized this coup. I consider this an attack. I consider this an attack as a policy subcommittee member who helped create this policy and as a board member who voted in favor of it. I heard nothing but the call for collaboration. However, when the chance for collaboration was there, you didn't take it. Instead, opting to panic and to wait to the last possible moment to try to change everything. And when that didn't work, your actions spoke volumes. Your actions say, if you don't agree with us, we'll work to get rid of you. What kind of message does that send to our students? All this policy does is create a level playing field for our students, give them some consistency in their subjects, provides a reliable syllabus for their planning, forces them to complete assignments on schedule, gives them relevant and timely feedback that they can use, and continues their ability to reassess, but only after following all the necessary steps and only once. That's what you voted against, Democrats of Mansfield. That's what the teachers are fighting against. Think about that. Thank you, Jim.
Very good. Yes,
Okay, you know, I do not disagree with what you had to say. I am personally very hurt that we are losing two very valuable people, and I'm wondering, you know, what this effect is going to be like for us to carry on. I am on policy. I also have about, I'm not going to tell you how many decades of working for equity. Anything you want to talk about, please see me. I want to be invited to the parent racial justice meetings. I want to bring my people from NAACP who are interested in us. So please don't leave me out, because I'm out there, I'm fighting every day, and I want to fight for equity in our school. Yes, I was devastated by the coup. That's correct. On the other hand, every person here has to work together. And when I said, don't point your fingers, you remind me of other people. Even in my own family, my husband says, you can't always play nice, Sarah. Come on, you know. But not that I always, well, I do play nice, but you know I'm as just as vocal as yourself, okay? You have said sometime we'd say the same thing, but we come at it from different perspectives. Look, as a union rep for teachers, I'm there for the teacher's job. I want you to know that as well. And even though I was shocked by what happened at the Democratic town caucus, that day when you guys came, I'm going good golly, Miss Mo, we got a problem here. And so they're good people here on this board. We have great administrators. We have great teachers. We have the best teachers in the room here. What in the world happened that we are at this divide? I'm the one who says don't point the fingers, as well as my friend Nick. And I mean that. Was I happy with it? No. But again, politically, right now I'm out doing politics every day. Hate is not an option. And I want to be, if John, any of the teachers want to talk to me, I don't speak for the school. I am a board person. I am not an administrator. I don't run this place. But I want to hear it. If there's some way that I can be a bridge, and I can go run tell Lou if somebody else doesn't want to go tell him. Lou has a lot of friends here. There are teachers that adore this man. Okay? And same thing with Sharon. You got quality all around. This is why it hurts me to the quick, because the teachers that were coming here, whether they were under misinformation or whatever, we are still, I believe in our goodness, and we can sit down and we can solve these problems. And I do understand the frustration of being a teacher that's overworked. I think like Arthur did say, we needed people to get in here, but I understand also working 10 or 12 hours a day to do your class, okay? But I'm here and I'm open to everybody, and I will be straightforward and honest with you, and if I'm wrong, you correct me. And absolutely, I'm standing up for equity. This is my whole life since I was 18 years old. I'm a little bit older, okay? And I'm still out there. I'm not telling you my age, because I'm sick of people being prejudiced with ageism. I got more fire in the belly than most people in this room, and I got more energy.
and I want to do the right thing for this school. And I'm here for every one of us, every section. Thank you.
Thanks, Darren. Nick?
Arthur, I agree with virtually everything you said, except for the finger pointing. I'm gonna be honest, and no offense to any of the other board members or myself, this summer we lost our two best board members, Jim and Kim. They have done more than I think everyone else here when we talk about equity, when we talk about supporting teachers, when we talk about supporting students. They have been real role models to me. And it's a huge loss, and I don't know what the board is going to look like coming up in these next couple of months, but people need to know it's a huge loss. So I'm frustrated by that. The thing that frustrates me the most, though, is I've had a lot of conversations this summer. A lot of conversations. And exactly almost zero of them have been about students. We've been focused on a lot of things. We haven't been focused on our students. And one of my concerns last year, and I said it very vocally, is I've been worried about our teachers, making sure that they feel supported, making sure you all feel heard, so that you can be there for our students. And that's still a real concern of mine. And that's why I disagree with the point you made about finger pointing, especially as the board, especially Lou and Sharon. And I'm grateful I was able to go to convocation. I think Lou and Sharon did a great job laying things out, opening dialogue. It's going to take time for everyone to feel comfortable to talk to one another, but it needs to happen. And it's going to be very, very difficult, but we have to do it. And one of the things that has really been transformative for me was dialogue and discourse when I was here at E.O. Smith. And it was always about having the difficult conversations. And what frustrates me is our students can have these conversations, but we as the adults in the room seem to fall short sometimes of having those difficult conversations and clearing the air. And so, sure, there's a lot of blame to go around. I'm to blame. I'm up for my election in 2 years. If you disagree with how I've represented Mansfield, come to the caucus, come to the primary. I'm more than happy to have those conversations. I will send you the meeting agenda and the dates. Let's have that conversation. Let the process play out. But come to the table. Come to the table. Let's have these conversations. Let's clear the air. And let's have conversations that start with what's best for students. And we're going to disagree on that. We're going to have very heated conversations. Sarah and I don't always agree. Arthur and I don't always agree. But I respect them. I respect the teachers that are willing to come and share their perspectives. I respect you all for being here tonight. And I know it's difficult to stay engaged, but as Sarah said, please reach out. I know it's a difficult time right now, but whatever we can do to be helpful, to make sure you feel represented, to make sure your kids feel represented, that's what we're here for. To bring up the uncomfortable conversations. And for teachers, please reach out. Please reach out. We're here for you as well. And so we all got to come together. We got to put the past in the past. It's a lot easier said than done. And it's going to take time. And we're going to do it wrong and whatever, blah, 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 blah. But let's do it. We have to do it. That's how we have to move forward. And right now we have a policy. I think it's a really good policy. And we're going to run with it this year. And if there are specific things from teachers that need to be addressed, let's do it. Let's address it. But bring it up as a consensus topic. And that's what we're here for. But we have a policy. It's being implemented. Lou and Sharon are doing a really good job. And I already talked too much, but there we go.
Yeah.
First of all, I appreciate everyone's support. I love working with all of you guys. But you guys touched upon something really important when you guys spoke. And to me, I think one of the hardest things about this is kind of the divide and the hurt and the pain that this has caused, when the entire conversation that we had over the years with policy was how to, help our students, lift up our students, how to address the concerns of the teachers with, timelines for things. The whole thing was based on good intentions. It came from our heart. It came from research-based information all across the country. So through all the things that have happened, I think the hardest thing for me to reconcile is that something that really came for the best interest of the students and to support the teachers and to serve all students, people were able to twist it and cause hurt, divide, and pain. And to me, that's probably one of the most difficult things of all this, because that was never, ever the intention of this policy. It was just purely to support student growth and learning, and to support the teachers in providing and serving our students.
Anyone else? Okay. Now we can entertain a motion to go into executive session. Nick is making that motion. Is there a second? Morgan, there's a second. She had her hand up first. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We're in.